welcome to Virtual Flight Diaries. This is a video that we're going to be comparing the Tukan Ford Trimotor AT5 with the Aeroplane Heaven Trimotor. Is this aircraft worth €24.99 compared to the Aeroplane Heaven, which is available on the marketplace for $9.99 or $14.99 depending on what version of Flight Simulator you have. So let's get started here. So this is the Tukan Flight Sim model that just released, and I really like the external texturing on this. It's actually done really well. You have like the weathered rust marks. I mean, it looks like a plane that's been around for quite some time. The engines are modeled really well. They have, crisp cylinder vanes and, tubing, and it looks really good. They really took time in detail putting this exterior model together. So let's get inside the cockpit. So to close the door, there's a click spot back here. Then I have to find there you go. Yeah, so it's on the door, so you kind of click through the texturing there. So this is the cockpit, and it's okay. Some blurry texturing, some low resolution texturing on the back here for the weathering. But all in all, it's not too bad. You can open the windows. Gauges are crisp. They're easy to read. As far as I can tell, you cannot click the control columns out of the way, which can be quite an issue with reading the manifold pressure here for engine 1, but you can still kind of access the parking brake, and you can access the controls here, or the magneto controls here as well. You have the mixtures here, and I believe, I'm not sure, that may be like carb heat or something. It doesn't look like it's clickable. It doesn't look like you can click that. So, all right. So let's start this up. So I'm going to turn on the fuel. Engines 1 and 2 are here, so I'm going to prime the right engine. Give it about 3, 1 for good measure. And we'll prime the left engine. Give it about 3 and 1 for good measure as well. And it will turn that off. So we'll fire up engine 3 first. Correct throttle. Oh, would help if I turned on the battery. Battery, nav lights, generator. Now we'll try it. Help if I had the magnetos on. Jeez. All right. And the left one. So right now I could tell you, compared to the Aeroplane Heaven, startup is really easy. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to prime that. So as long as you do the startup procedure right, they fire up right away with no issues. So as far as I could tell, so this does have an autopilot, but it's not quite. It doesn't really work. It has no other controls other than turn it on and it just goes wild. I did some keybinds and was able to wrangle it in, but it wouldn't follow a course, a VOR course, and heading hold, it would just oscillate back and forth, and it was very hard to get it to hold the altitude as well. Maybe I'm missing something. I read the documentation, I couldn't find anything on it. As a matter of fact, the documentation doesn't even say anything about an autopilot. So this is hand fly all the time. So I mean, some people like that. I like that as well, but I would like to take this on some long flights, and I don't necessarily need a GPS, but to be able to fly some VORs to VOR hand-free would be beneficial. So we're going to take off to demonstrate the flight dynamics and just do a little pattern work and land, and then we're going to take a look at the Aeroplane Heaven version. So let's just taxi out over here. Taxiing is not difficult. Little differential braking and some use of the nose wheel. I think the engine sounds are pretty good. We'll see how they compare to the Aeroplane Heaven version. Prop discs seem to be a little pronounced, but having not ever sat in the flight deck of an actual Ford Trimotor, I don't know if that's a thing, but I feel as though you shouldn't be able to see it like that. It has a nice trim sound to it, a little squeak to the crank. I mean, it hand flies very nice, very docile. Nothing too crazy with it. I would just like for $24.99, I think we should see some more features. A better autopilot, even if they just slapped in an old style spurry autopilot that would be more of the time period. But in this day and age, when you look at restored airplanes, they have modern avionics in it, because it's very hard in a modern air traffic system to fly with a old school style avionics from like the 1930s, and plus parts are hard to come by. So having that restored modern cockpit wouldn't be so bad either. I mean, it's It flies, it holds altitude hand flying very well. But, if you're going to fly like this for a couple hours, it's going to get tiresome. So that's why you usually need a good autopilot. Because nobody's just doing pattern work all the time. So that's my take on the Tukan simulations. For the visual model the exterior visual model is good. It's great. The interior model is good. It maybe use a little crisping up, but I don't really complain too much about that. But maybe for the price range, it should be just a little better. As you can see, it responds. It does what you want it to do. So, if you really love these vintage planes, you wouldn't go too wrong. But if you want to do long flights with it, and you would really need an autopilot and some navigational help, this might not be the plane for you. As you can see, it lands really nice. No odd oscillations on the ground. Little aerodynamic braking. Just keep the back pressure on until we slow down. Maybe some light brakes. Some differential braking here. Bring it right around. So the flight model is very nice. And really what we want to, just what I would like to have seen was just a better implementation of an autopilot. That's all. Other than that, it flies great. It handles great. You can't really go wrong with it in that aspect. So, but let's compare it to the Aeroplane Heaven, and we all know that Aeroplane Heaven can have some issues. Okay, we're back here with the Aeroplane Heaven version Trimotor. The textures are good, but they seem a lot newer. Like this plane just rolled out of the factory in 1930s, and we get to fly it. The engine modeling is a little flat compared to the Tukan flight sims. version. And, you know, it's so compared to the Tukan Flight Sim version, it's a little I don't know what the word would be. It's just a little, you know, too modern looking. It has all the animations, all the wire animations. Both planes have all that. So let's get inside. So the cockpit, for one, I like the cockpit in here a lot better because I like to be able to take the yokes away. It would be nice to have some interior animations, like, you know, opening the doors. Tukan does win out on that. These things are easier to see in the Tukan version. So right engine on. Left engine on. So cockpit wise, you get different choices of cockpits here. You get you can get a, you know, 1920s version, a modern avionics, a restored version. This one with this plane works the best. The autopilot works better than this version, which is the 1930s with the Spurry. But this Spurry autopilot, there's some bugs to it, and they haven't been fixed. But the navigation in the modern panel looks better. Or, I mean, works better. So, all in all, the build of the Tukan version versus the Aeroplane Heaven version, I liked the way the cockpit was set up in the Tukan Flight Sim version. This one is just a little Spartan, but I want to chalk it up to a restored panel, you know, more modern, more what would be if you were flying this plane today. The interior textures are about the same quality, in my opinion. A little fuzzy, could improve. The difference here with this one too is startup. So let's get the engine primed up. So we're going to do left engine first. Primed that about 4 or 5 times. Now if I can remember the sequence here. All right, crack the throttle. Left engine start. Did the same thing with the other one. I gotta turn the battery on. All right, generator, come on. All right, let's try this again. Left engine start. Let that wind up for a second. So this one is actually harder to start than one, two, three. Okay, so through the magic of simulation, we started our engines. So, Tukan simulation flight sim version wins out here. The Aeroplane Heaven version, if you don't get it right, it won't start at all. So, can't open the windows. So the Tukan Flight Simulations version wins there as well. All right, but how do they fly? So taxiing this plane is about the same. Maybe a little more difficult. A lot more differential braking is needed with the Aeroplane Heaven version. Sound animations for the cockpit for this one is lacking. Also, the engine sounds are a little flat. They're not as throaty as the Tukan version. This flight model is not as enjoyable to hand fly compared to the Tukan flight sim version. But it's not terrible. So the Tukan version just edges out this one in flight model, in flight characteristics. This plane does have a working autopilot, so that's a pro for this one. But I'm going to say that it's not enough. If Tukan Flight Sim would somehow add a better autopilot logic to the airplane in an update, then it would be the absolute perfect Ford Trimotor. But this plane is about $10 cheaper, $10 to $15 cheaper. But it has a lot of bugs, and the flight model just isn't that good. So the fact that it has a working autopilot and navigational type system, in my opinion, doesn't make it worth it. Yeah, this flight model just doesn't have that feel, that heavy feel. I'm gonna brake. Okay, so in conclusion, the Tukan Flight Sim Trimotor AT5 compared to the Aeroplane Heaven, which I believe also is an AT4, which is the less powerful version. But anyway, price point, the Tukan version is more expensive by only roughly $10, depending on what version of Flight Sim you have. The Aeroplane Heaven version just doesn't match up. The Tukan, other than the fact that if you need an autopilot, the Tukan version will not be for you. But as far as flight dynamics, engine sounds, animations, exterior modeling, the cockpit looks fuller and better. Visually, it just looks more real. The Tukan Flight Sim Ford Trimotor beats the Aeroplane Heaven one. And if you are in the market for a classic Ford Trimotor aircraft, the Tukan Flight Sim version is the one to get. Price point, everything. They would, like I said, it would be, if they would just add an autopilot that works, it would be 100% perfect. But hand flying, everything's nice. It trims out very nice. This one's just, and it has that feel of this big wing 1920s airplane compared to this one right here, which just doesn't meet that mark. So my recommendation: get the Tukan Flight Sim Ford Trimotor, because the Aeroplane Heaven version just has too many issues to beat out the fact that it has an autopilot. All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for watching, and on to the next one, guys. See ya.